Oh, here's the thing I was going to say, by the way. Fascism is back and bigger than ever in Italy. Footage circulating on social media shows hundreds of men gathered outside the former headquarters of the Italian social movement, MSI, making fascist salutes. The Italian social movement was a fascist party that later morphed into the Brothers of Italy party, of which Giorgia Meloni, the incumbent prime minister, was a co-founder. Meloni has distanced her party from allegations of links to fascists. That's right, claiming it is patriotic and conservative. The event marked the 46th anniversary of the killing of the three fascists in Via Assia Larentia in Rome. I go to Italy for 4 days, 5 days. I say the one thing about the bread, and all of a sudden, Lazio gets a big boost in support, okay? This is how it works. I said to myself, what the is going on with the food in Roma? And all of a sudden, half of Italy is like, oh, Maron. It's like 300 dudes from the whole country on one square LARPing. Last time there was millions of Italian fascists. They couldn't conquer 20 Ethiopians and a Greek grandma. That's funny. Italians seem scary until you realize they're all 5'8". As an Italian chatter from Rome, I feel so ashamed watching this video, but I'm glad you're covering it. I mean, yeah, what do you think is supposed to happen? I mean, I tweeted about this too. I said, look, it's pretty obvious. I've been talking about this quite a bit this past year especially, that like fascism is absolutely popping in Europe. Some might say it never went away. Others might say it was hidden under a liberal agenda. Under liberalism, it was able to hide itself, like the same mechanisms of control that fascism implements. Ultimately, though, it's happening in Germany. It's happening with Geert Wilders. You got libs so mad with your tweet. Yeah, I know. They can suck me. Well, they can get so mad that they join the fascists, I guess. You know what I mean? I said decades of neoliberalism have successfully gutted the socialist opposition in every single European country. Now they're openly embracing fascist politics again. Dark times. Yep, blame the liberals, not the socialist movement itself. Yeah, you're right. I love looking at a system where like liberals have dominated these countries and it's still somehow the fault of socialists. I love having these politics, man. It's so funny. It's just like a lot of these idiots fancy themselves to be so above the reactionary garbage of Fox News, right? And this is the hilarious part about being like an online liberal who talks about being an online liberal. And it's no different than the absolute baboon-brained Fox News watcher who thinks Nancy Pelosi is a socialist, who thinks all of the worst aspects of capitalism are still somehow socialism. That's it. But of course, it doesn't really matter because there's like a viable audience for being this outspoken of a dumbass. So you can just kind of get away with being wrong over and over again. Like, how is that any different? Yeah, it's actually terrifying how mainstream fascism is becoming just being like, this isn't fascism. It's exactly the same as fascism, but with a different title. No, I don't get it. I don't understand how you can like look at the situation and recognize that it's anything different than the guy who literally says, oh, what about bread lines? And then like points to a photo of like a capitalist country and be like, hey, look at that. That's socialism. Jeff Bezos, he's socialist. It's like, okay, everything is socialist. Everything bad is socialist. I mean, look. Here, another incredible blue check mark. Socialists literally acting like Nazis. Hasan, it's the neoliberals who did this. Yeah, no, years of socialism gutting economies and trampling on the middle class have done that. Way to go. Socialism only serves the elites. There you go, dude. Great to see. Fascism is a form of socialism. Twitter is straight up completely just a sea of the dumbest takes. At least there used to be funny takes back in the day. Now it's just like the absolute stupidest takes of all time. Oh, you have to be an American with a comment like that, says Jimble Snarks. He says Canadian. I've experienced it firsthand. Quebecer spotted, opinion discarded. You know what I mean? I don't think there's any way of actively combating this level of stupidity. I'm going to be honest. There's just no way. The worse things get for these dudes individually, like the worse things get all around the world, or all around their world in particular, the more they will blame socialism somehow. And it's like, where is the socialism? Socialists shooting socialism in the chest. How could neoliberalism do this? I think there's something really weird about people LARPing as like European style social democrats. Unless this person is actually a European social democrat. I'm Dutch and capitalist interest neoliberals indeed up the Netherlands, reversing the economy, enabling fascism, and leftist socialists get the blame now. Yeah. Talk shit about the European society, you know you want to. I mean, I don't have to talk shit about the Europeans. I've already said it. Everything that's happening here is happening in Europe and accelerating, going towards a worse position overall. Entire sectors previously controlled by the government are being liberated by the beautiful reforms of the market. And as social amenities and social safety nets get deliberately worse as a consequence of that, all that will end up happening is more frustrated people, more economic instability, more economic volatility, more insecurity, more instability, and therefore more fascist. And it's like weird that people who say that they're social democrats, for example, are like gearing up for this fascist takeover by simultaneously fighting, just more so shifting their focus upon the people to the left of them, rather than the supposedly thing that they hate the most, which is supposed to be fascism, right? Wow, that hasn't happened before. Exactly. I mean, that's what sock dems do. I mean, I thought there was a time and place where I would say, like, that's just LARPing, especially for America. Like, oh, sock dems killed Rosa, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I mean, it's still Twitter LARPing for the most part, a lot of this back and forth. But it is weird. Like, what's the difference between a social democrat and just like a regular neoliberal then? If you're looking at a bunch of fascists, and I'm talking about decades of neoliberalism successfully gutting socialist opposition in every single European country, then what is the difference between you and a neoliberal? Like, why don't you just call yourself a liberal or a neoliberal? Why do you feel the need to call yourself a social democrat? There is no difference then, I guess, because that's what liberals do. Liberals look at this and go, no, this is actually socialism at play. It's socialism's fault. And this doesn't make any sense to me. Why make this distinction? Why act like you are somehow different than liberals while simultaneously defending liberals, allowing economic instability? Because, like, in the eyes of a fascist, a social democrat is also a socialist. If you're like actual social democrat, if you believe in heavy regulation over market reforms, right, then you shouldn't be defending neoliberalism, which is free market reforms and no regulation whatsoever. So in a situation where the battle lines are drawn, and let's say you have two pathways that you could take, socialism or fascism, socialism or barbarism, and you take the fascist path, then okay, you're indistinguishable than a fascist. I don't understand it. Social democracy is popular currently. I think that's why people are starting to realize liberalism is a problem, so everyone wants to be a social democrat. Okay, but you can't be defending liberalism while also simultaneously branding yourself as something a little bit different. Does that make sense? Sock dems in Europe do not blame socialism. They blame foreigners, hence alt-right parties rising. They allow for some social safety nets for their white citizens. I mean, it's different in every country, okay? If you look at a social democrats in Sweden and it's like peak, then many of them were indistinguishable from democratic socialists. Some of them actually called themselves democratic socialists or socialists. There is a difference there, and that difference is indistinguishable now because sock dems are liberals, and deep in the back of the liberals' mind, they see the current order as just and socialism an actual recognized threat. I don't get it. If you are looking at a situation where neoliberalism is the dominant attitude from those in positions of power in Europe, and you are blaming socialism like a dumbass reactionary mouth breather, then how are you any different than that same dumbass reactionary mouth breather at that point? My point is this: if you consider yourself a social democrat, then you must consider yourself something different than like a regular neoliberal, a liberal in general. Like, you believe in government regulation. You believe in government intervention. You believe in, trust busting. You believe in social safety nets, social amenities, like things that the government is supposed to provide. You believe in nationalization of key sectors in the economy. These are things that social democrats believe in. You have to be, at least in the fundamentals, when push comes to shove, way closer to my mentality of the world than the other side. You have to be way closer to my mentality of the world than liberals, for example. So that's what I don't understand. Why do you distinguish yourself from liberals while simultaneously pushing the same exact attitudes that liberals do? It makes no sense. Just say you're a liberal then. Yes, but Haas, I think to make socialism work like Vienna, we needed to tighten immigration and we won't do that. First of all, that's not true. It's not even remotely true. Economy scale. You're out of your mind for saying things like that. It's more so about a distribution of the surplus labor value than anything else. And it's funny because people that say that don't care about fixing the economy or offering social amenities. They just don't want brown people in the country. Okay, that's it. Anyone that says, no, we need tighter immigration controls before we get socialism in this country is just straight up operating like a 1938 Nazi, okay? Oh, yeah, no, totally, dude. We're gonna get the better social safety nets once we kick out all the browns and the blacks, right? Like, that's how we're gonna arrive at it magically. I don't understand how you can live in America and feel this way when social cohesion does not necessitate looking exactly like your neighbor. This is the country where every single person from every single background will become eventually a hog. 3 generations in, this beautiful mosaic turns into a melting pot, and that's precisely the reason why we are probably the only country where there are even trans school shooters. My argument is, instead of assimilating into becoming a school shooter or a hog of different varieties, there is clearly social cohesion of that sort. Why don't we blend into a diverse, multicultural, pluralistic society that takes care of its own fucking citizens and gets in the way and doesn't get in the way of revolutionary actions globally? My thing was more so just about, like I said, it was more so about like why people fancy branding themselves as something that's not a liberal while simultaneously just defending liberalism. Does that make sense? Especially as conditions worsen. Just say you're a liberal instead of saying you're a social democrat then. I don't get it. Is it possible you are conflating people with different views? I mean, that is possible, but I'm simply responding to this person who calls themselves a sock them libtard, right? They have clearly branded themselves as a social democrat. A social democrat is supposed to be different than a liberal. A social democrat is still a capitalist, but it's supposed to be different than a liberal, because if this person was a liberal, they would have just called themselves a liberal. I don't think people understand that difference. Because the reason why I'm saying this is like the branding of being a social democrat in this circumstance does not make sense. How the F are they blaming socialists for Italian fascism? No, they are indiscernible from regular old reactionary weirdos in that regard. There is no difference between this attitude here, okay, as it pertains to Italy or any European country, as a matter of fact, and what right-wing Republicans say all the time about how socialism has ruined this country, the United States of America. That's what I'm saying. Like looking at Italy, looking at modern Italy, the Italian economy, and saying socialism and socialists have done this to Italy. That's why there's so much fascism in Italy. Is akin to Republicans constantly being like, yeah, hell yeah, brother, socialism ruined the American country, the American countryside. It's like you are indistinguishable from a European neoliberal of this, if this is your argument. I mean, I'm willing to bet you scroll far back enough on any number of these people's platforms, okay, on their Twitters, they are going to have a bunch of takes like how radical they were, how much they love Bernie Sanders, how they think the Democratic Party sucks, and like they've 100% under Donald Trump, every single person behaved like they were a violent revolutionary. Maybe even tweets about how they've outflanked someone such as myself. Hasan has betrayed the revolution, guys. I really don't like it. I myself am a real Marxist-Leninist or whatever. Not saying that every single person 100% was like that, but there are plenty of people who did that. People who are like, oh, I'm a, card-carrying Communist Party member. And then they quietly fizzle out their interest, noticing that there isn't a real market for such commentary. Finally, they come to that realization that, like, maybe it's not actually super fashionable to openly support socialism in an environment that is, like, actively against it. So then they turn around and decide on a new avenue, on a new ideological journey for themselves, I assume. Wait, I think I get what you're saying. It makes more sense if you think of them as saying that the socialist movement in Europe kneecapped itself and let fascists win. I don't know. Just trying to make sense. How? Okay. So many of those, like, I'm actually way more further to the left than Hasan guys have become right-wing reactionaries, or, either liberals that call themselves liberals of a different variety, no different than how in the early 2016 era, there were a lot of people who left the left and were liberals, but classical liberals. You remember that? Remember that momentum from the likes of Dave Rubin? If you're old enough and brain broken enough, you remember that. People used to say, I'm actually a liberal. I'm a classical liberal. I'm just different. Sargon of Akkad would do that. Tim Pool did it too. Red Scare Podcast has done that recently. Exactly. So many people who constantly said I was fake and phony have demonstrated that they themselves were just simply projecting. People who are like, oh, Hasan's politics are so fake. He's actually only doing this to appease his audience to be popular. They showed that they had no moral clarity, no vision, no genuine perspective, no real politics whatsoever. If being a leftist and being a socialist was so popular, all of these little grifters would not have become, different versions of liberals over the course of the past couple of years. That's all I'm saying. They all said, oh, dude, you're a grifter. You're doing this for clout or whatever, which is why, I decided I couldn't cut it as a socialist content creator, so now I'm a liberal. Turns out it was all projection. How odd.